Hi, hello. How's it going? I have something to tell you about today. I just got this in the mail. This is Element's new flavor, and I think it's a limited edition. It's a holiday special of chocolate mint. Chocolate mint, people. Chocolate mint. I love chocolate mint. It's like one of my favorite flavors. So, little packet. It is an electrolyte drink. So this packet has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium in the form of magnesium malate. And I love these drink mixes. And they were so sweet and sent me a mug. The I'm a sucker for a good color match here. So I got this mug, and normally it says stay salty. This one says stay cozy. It's a little insulated Yeti mug, and it's very sweet. And it's a big one, which I require a large mug. I don't know about you guys. And so it's delicious, and it smells so good. It tastes really good. It's very cute. So if you're a chocolate mint lover like me, I would say get on this. I'll post a link. It's drinkelement.com/Kim Howerton is my link. I'd always appreciate you using my link if you can. And it'll take you to a page where they tell you how to get this flavor. If you don't want this flavor, you want other things, just go to shop and get whatever you want. So, like delicious, delicious, delicious. And if you have peppermint nut pods or peppermint, what am I thinking of? Peppermint, Keurig or whatever, peppermint, whatever. That coffee would be really good with it. It's salty, not too salty. I probably use like half a packet per cup of coffee. I use some cashew milk. I got some cashew milk, so I use some cashew milk in that. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. I put out a call for questions for videos and ideas, and I thought I would tackle like a topic at the beginning of a call before people come and give me their questions. So I'm going to start with one of those. And then if you have questions as you come in, just type them in the comments, and I will hopefully see them, and I will answer your questions if I can. So if you don't know me, welcome. I'm Kim Howerton. I am a health coach. I am a keto coach. I am a low carb coach. I am an all sorts of things coach. And specifically, I have lost over 90 pounds using keto and low carb approaches. And I talk about the things. And I drink mint flavored chocolate coffee. Okay, where I try not to dribble on myself. Um, so one of the questions that somebody asked was, and I've heard this before, so I'll talk about it. So there is something out there. God, shoot, now I can't. It's like Optimia. Hold on, what the heck was it called? Now I'm gonna. I know it's a product. Hold on, I'll find it. Wow, was it? Up, up. What's it called? It's not Optifast. Oh, okay. So there's a product called Optavia. Optavia. Um, and so Optavia sounds very fancy. Optavia. But Optavia is a product by Medifast. Do you guys remember Medifast from the 80s? I do. Um, And so Medifast was a like drink 6 shakes a day kind of approach. And so they aren't that different these days, but they have sort of a halo. Now, they have a couple of different plans, like the 6, that was called the 5 and 1 and the 4 and 2 and the 3 and 3. And each one of those just refers to you eat with a 5 and 1, you eat one real meal, like real food, something you made a day, and 5 fake meals. And then each as the numbers vary, that's just the difference. How many products you're eating versus how many whole meals, real meals you're eating. And so a bunch of people are like, my friends are trying to get me to do Optivia. What's that? And so by the way, I just invented that accent. I'm on the internet. I can't hear you, but that's what I think they sound like. And And so what it is now the one meal doesn't look that bad on the 5-in-1, which is the plan they think you should buy, by the way, when you go to their website. Um, and and so it's like 3 servings of vegetables, 5 to 7 ounces of lean meat, and a little bit of olive oil or avocado or something like that. I'm like, great, that's a great meal. Eat that. Super. Go forth. You're good. No, but that's not it. That's the meal. The rest, you have to buy 5 different food items from them that are like shakes and bars. I think they try to make it seem more food-based, so it's things like soups and bars and cheese puffs, like, it's all like fakey junk food. Um, and and it's like 1,000 calories a day. You eat every 2 to 3 hours, 6 meals a day, but they're barely meals. They're really just nibbles. And so no, I vote no. I'm gonna vote no on the Optivia. Um, the pro the meal they tell you to eat, solid. Just do that. Not just once. Do that like 3 times a day and you'll be good. And you don't have to buy any of their stuff. And so for me, what it's really doing is and by the way, the main ingredients in their bars and stuffs, I'm just calling it stuff because it's like just packaged stuff. Is soy protein, some whey protein. They try and give you plenty of protein, but it's like, well, you could just have some meat. And I can't imagine it's cheap. I can't eat. If we complain about the price of whole real food, but I mean, they have to package that stuff, and if it is cheap, imagine what the quality is like. I mean, the quality can't be good, but it's even worse than I think if it's cheap. Um, but those bars, what are they teaching you? They're not teaching you anything but to eat junk food. And so you're learning to just choose lower calorie junk food. So at the end, when you've lost your weight, for you to not regain all your weight, you have to keep buying their junk food because if you just transition to commercial junk food, now you're going to regain the it's just ridiculous. I think it's terrible. I'm a no. So, uh I have not tried the product. I have not ordered the product. Uh I don't know, but I'm going to say no. I would say follow their advice on that one meal and multiply it by 3 and call it good. That's what I'd say. There you go. Okay, so that was one of my questions that I got. And then a lot of people wrote in, and I will talk about this several times because it's a big topic, but a lot of people wrote in and said, why did keto stop working for me? That was a big question from a lot of people. And I think, what I've come back to is I was that person too. So I started keto. It was great. It was the first time I ever felt really successful on a diet. I'd had short-term diet success in various phases, but it had never felt like it was going to stick. And in keto, I was like, I can do this. This feels sustainable. I'm happy about this. But then I did reach a point where I stopped losing weight and I, in fact, started gaining a little bit of weight. And I was like, I was scared. I got disillusioned and I was angry, sad, and I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed by that like how dare I trust that I could be successful? I don't know about you guys if you have fought with your weight a lot. There's a place you get to where you lose hope. Like, you might kind of be distant relatives with hope. You might see it on the horizon a little bit, but you don't really think it's for you. Um, and there's a way that um, you decide that it's better to not feel hopeful about change. And um, I took a leap of faith to try keto, and it it took, like, it worked for a while, and, like, what I was doing, and I sort of regained a relationship with hope. And then when I felt like keto deserted me, I felt betrayed, like, really betrayed, and I didn't know what to do, and I had to investigate. And so what I came to was, like, there's a lot about weight loss that we don't pay attention to in the keto world, a lot of us, because some of us don't really need to, but the various laws of thermodynamics and metabolism and biology apply. And so looking at those things, getting grounded in those things helped me reconnect to what would work. And from there, I was able to make some changes, which is why for me at that point, I switched to eating more protein and not low fat in any way, but like moderating my fat based on what um, worked for continued fat loss for me. And so, um, and John says, yeah, your set weight gets lower as you lose. When he was 301 pounds, he lost weight eating 3,500 calories a day, right? And so, there's this study that they've done, and I'll do a video specifically on this, where they looked at different uh, lean mass. So not your fat mass, just your lean mass. The thing that is most correlated to caloric intake is how much lean mass you have. But at the same amount of lean mass, some people can eat 6,000 calories a day and maintain their weight, and some people can eat 1,200. There is huge differences based on a number of factors. And so things are going to change and things are going to shift. And so you can't ever think the thing that used to work, the amount of food that used to work, is going to work now. The good news is I have yet to meet a person that can't see success. It's just maybe not going to be fast. And so we have to delve into what's going on. And so to every person out there who is not seeing the success they want, I encourage them to track all their macros for a week or two, like very carefully, like using a scale and weighing all their food and making and no bites, no licks of a spoon, nothing goes in your mouth that isn't tracked. Get a really accurate accounting, and then from there we'll see what's going on, or but then you have data to do something with. And so we can talk more about that, but I wanted to say, like, I feel those people, I was those people, and the first step, if you are those people, is to get a really uh, good, accurate accounting of what you're intaking, so that you can then see if there's something that's going to maybe stand out to you as something that needs to shift. And if nothing stands out to you, it can be something that someone like a coach could help you with, see what needs to shift, because they need data too. Okay, let's see. Terry says, I think that for some of us, like Kim says, psycho matters, which is calories in, calories out. Okay, I don't say, I tend not to use the phrase calories in, calories out. Let me tell you why. Because it's attached to a way of thinking that means it's just about calories in, calories out. I do say calories do matter and activity matters, but that's different than calories in, calories out on one level. So if you're saying it's sort of like it's like simple or complicated. So it is on some level calories in, calories out. But when people say calories in, calories out, what they mean is it's simple, eat this much, move this much, lose that much, period, end of story. And I don't mean that. So I don't like the phrase psycho or CISO, whatever, because I think it has connotations that I don't mean when I say you might need to pay attention to calories, just to clarify. Um, and Kim says, got my first C peptide in 3 years in, 1.35. Yeah, that is a good C peptide. Excellent. Pam says, my question is about TSH. Okay, hit it, Pam. What is your question? TSH stands for thyroid sensing hormone. But what is your specific question? Yvonne says, so slow losing the last 10 pounds. I lost the first time real fast, this time nothing. So the last 10 pounds are going to be a lifetime compared to the first 10 pounds, especially if you started with a lot of pounds to lose. Selena says, sleep matters too when weight loss is one of your top goals. Absolutely. Sleep is so important. It's not all about calories and it's not all about, well, so the body, when we don't get adequate sleep, turns down a lot of the processes. So our metabolism is slower, we're more insulin resistant. All sorts of things happen when we aren't sleeping enough. So you need to sleep enough. Um, Pam says, oh, okay. Does TSH elevate in keto? Mine has gone haywire since ketovore. So let's talk about what TSH is. I need a taller desk because I cannot cross my legs under my desk. So TSH is thyroid sensing hormone. So it's not actually a direct thyroid hormone. What it is it's a measure. So when TSH goes up, essentially you can think of it as a loudspeaker. So you've turned the volume up on the loudspeaker, telling your thyroid to release more T4. The thyroid releases T4, which is then converted to T3. T3 is the type of thyroid hormone that we mostly use. And so we make T4, we convert it to T3, we use T3. And TSH, it doesn't do anything in and of itself. What it's doing is it's getting the message. It's the message man, the messenger. It's telling your thyroid we need more. And so when TSH goes up, what that's essentially saying, um, normally is, we need more thyroid hormone. We're not getting enough. And so a high TSH tends to, mean that you might be experiencing lower thyroid amounts. So, but then the question becomes, how do you feel? So sometimes different diets, keto and carnivore, can actually lower T3 in our blood, but asymptomatically, because it might mean we just need less T3. And so we might make less. But if we feel good, we're not gaining weight, we are sleeping well, we're not constipated, still have our eyebrows and our eyelashes, our hair's not falling out, our skin is moist, we're not dry and crackly, and we're not cold all the time. Like if we feel good, if we're not having thyroid symptoms, then sometimes the number is just a number and doesn't mean that we're having thyroid problems. However, if you have high numbers on your TSH, it's time to do some investigating to look at what's your free T4, what's your free T3, what's your reverse T3, do you have TPO antibodies? To look at, are there downstream effects? Then you also need to look at your symptoms. Do you have symptoms of hypothyroidism? High TSH would indicate that there may, not that there are, but there may be hypothyroid issues. So it's not natural that would go up on a keto or carnivore diet. John says study shows you can burn 300 more calories in ketosis. So I think that was that Ludwig's study, and I think it was like 280. I have some suspicion that doesn't persist, that's a transitory experience, but I certainly think that there can be some metabolic advantages of ketosis. Absolutely. But the best way to know what your caloric intake should be is to eat in a certain way and see what your body does with the amount you're eating, and then might go up or down, right? Like you might find, oh, I'm eating the amount that I think I should, and I'm gaining weight or I'm losing weight. Well, that means it's probably, if you're trying to maintain your weight, it's either too low or too high, and you can make adjustments. Luckily, you are your own science experiment. You have all the tools you need because you're there and you have probably a scale and a tape measure, and you can know, am I eating more or less than my body wants me to right now? And if I'm eating what I think is not very much, but I'm gaining weight or I'm not seeing weight loss when I think I should, then that's something to definitely investigate about your metabolic rate. And something that can be adjusted through things like reverse dieting potentially. Um, and that's another point that I want to make that's a related point is a lot of people will go to online calorie calculators or macro calculators. Everybody and their sister has one online to say like, "Oh, what should I eat for fat loss? What kind of macros should I eat?" And the reality is we are so different. Remember that study I told you about earlier where some people are eating 1200 calories, some people are eating 6000 calories. That's crackers. That's bonkers. And so we're all individuals. And so the best way to know what your macro proportion should be is not somebody else's calorie calculator, which is just a guess. Now you can try it, see what happens, and make adjustments, but the likelihood of it being actually correct is low. Okay. Yvonne says, no, I lost it all the first time, then went to maintenance and gained it back and can't lose it again, I think is what you're saying. Um, yeah, the second time can be harder. So here's what happened. Hold on, I'm having some of my mint. It's so good. Okay, so you lose weight. And when we lose weight, it's often lost in a combination although on keto, a lot less of that loss is muscle, but you lose some muscle and you lose fat. And then when you regain, it's mostly fat. And so your metabolic rate is now lower than it was before you lost it the first time. So when you try to lose it again, now you've got a harder row to hoe. Now it's more challenging. Your metabolic rate is lower, so your caloric intake may need to be lower, and it's more challenging. So regaining the weight is probably not, not that everyone doesn't do it, but regaining the weight is probably 20 times worse. I'm just guessing at a number than just not having lost it in the first place. You're in a much better place to lose it incrementally and slowly than down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So it will be harder. And John says 100 calories of soda is not 100 calories of liver. Absolutely. Our body looks at macronutrients or calories from different macronutrients and from different food sources very differently. Highly palatable, highly processed. That's the word I'm looking for. Highly processed foods, we absorb more of the calories. So, certain types of like the more whole food, real food, highly processed foods. Now, every food is processed. You cook it, you processed it. So I'm not like against processed foods, but highly processed foods are often more energetically available to us. So that's also dangerous. Um, Isla says thoughts on Mindy Pell's idea to eat progesterone building foods 7 days prior to menstrual cycle, even though it means getting out of ketosis. I think you probably are referring to. And I'm not. I'm going to say that because almost everything she teaches are not things that I'm fully aligned with. I'm not probably super aligned with that either. I think her protein recommend. Well, getting very honest today. I'm worried about some of her recommendations, and I'm not saying she doesn't. She might not be right, but I don't like the extreme amount of fasting and the low protein approach. And I don't think there's a problem with going out of ketosis occasionally, but I do think that when you're fasting a lot and going out of ketosis and eating low protein over and over and over again, all those things, it worries me. I'll just put it that way. Worries me. Anna says the problem with calories in, calories out, it assumes 1 calorie is equal to another. Yes, I object to that. Okay. John says, women need to carb cycle. No, women no need to carb cycle. Some women enjoy carb cycling, but I know lots of women who do not carb cycle and they do not need to. Nancy says, I think everyone has ups and downs in their journey. One thing I figured is staying connected with keto advice. I'm at a goal weight, but I still watch your Tuesday lives and keep connecting. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, Jill says, what can you tell us about mTOR and extended fasting? So I'm not a fasting expert. Um, so I might not be able to tell you, but I can tell you that mTOR um, stands for mammalian target of rapamycin, which was discovered on Easter Island. Basically, mTOR is kind of has become a bit of a boogeyman. mTOR is something in your body that is stimulated by a lot of things. And fasting lowers mTOR. So you can kind of think about it like when you eat high protein, it stimulates mTOR. But you know what else stimulates mTOR? High insulin stimulates mTOR. mTOR is required for building muscle. So if you're spending your life trying to avoid any experiences of mTOR, you will be less healthy. However, one thing we want is moments of increased mTOR, increased protein, increased weightlifting, things that stimulate muscle growth. Those are points we want in the day. We don't want it all day, which is why having lower in one of 20,000 reasons why walking around having lower insulin levels is very helpful, because high insulin levels will cause mTOR to be stimulated regularly. So fasting is a sort of a mTOR lowering experience. That's what I know about mTOR. So, um, and Peter Attia has done podcasts on mTOR. And so if that's something you want to look into, absolutely you can. I just generally know that I think much ado has been made about, you know, the vegans like to say that meat will stimulate mTOR and that's bad, but that's not. That's a very it's it's an mTOR is something you want in appropriate doses and appropriate spacing. You don't want it constantly. Um Nancy says my TH is depressed and rock bottom. My free T3 and free T4 are also rock bottom. My reverse T3 is elevated. I feel so hypo. I can't keep my eyes open. I'm so sorry, Nancy. One thing I will say is TSH when you're because I know your story. I want to say that uh, if so, here's the funky thing you're experiencing. Your TSA is low, and so low TSA usually would mean that you're properly in my brain that you're not hypothyroid, right? So, for me, I'm medicated, and I find that a lot of medicated people, so people who have hypothyroidism and take medication, need to get their TSH very low. So a normal TSH might be 1, but I feel better if I keep my TSH like zero point 0.5. And so some people who use medication experience lower TSH and feel good at lower levels of TSH than other people might. Okay. Donald says 32.2 miles on my recumbent bike, and when I got back home, my blood sugar was at 79 on the meter. Great, super duper. Nancy says my doctor, not daughter, just added Cytomel T3 to my NP thyroid to raise my levels. All right. Oh, Donald's saying now you have cold chills. Well, did you get sweaty? Is 79 low for you? 79, are you type 2 and that's lower than you're used to experiencing? Because that would be normal for me. Um, so anytime we are used to a certain blood sugar level and it goes much below that, we might experience sort of just like what is in the dark over there. We might experience hypoglycemic symptoms, what is at a perfectly fine blood sugar for most people, but everything is relative. So if you don't feel well, you can sit down, have some tea, don't pass out. Eat a meal if that's appropriate for you. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor. I'm not anyone's doctor. But if you don't feel well and you think you're having what are for you hypoglycemic symptoms, take those seriously so that you feel better. Um, Nancy says, "So is my keto diet working against me?" Well, let's talk about it. So you've just been through an incredibly stressful experience with your body, and your body is freaking out. I don't know that keto is causing any of these things. I don't know that keto is a problem. I don't I don't know any of that. I think that if you want to experience with adding a little bit more vegetables into your life, you are a healthy individual in terms of your body composition. And if you want to see if you feel better with a few more vegetables, maybe, some more broccoli, maybe some more kale. I don't like kale though, but whatever vegetables you like, you can see, do you feel better adding those things back in? Even some things with a little higher carb, like maybe like some winter squash, or even like a little bit of fruit. Not Maybe not bananas, not grapes, not high sugar fruits, but maybe some melon or something. And see, like, do you feel better with those things in your diet. Um, I don't think everyone has to be like super keto for the rest of their lives if it's not serving them. That being said, based on what you've said, there's nothing that makes me think, oh, keto is really a problem there. But if you want to experiment with a little more, if you're at a good body composition, I'm not talking about eating ice cream and ho-hos, but if you want to see how your body reacts to, a little more vegetables, maybe a little low sugar fruit here and there, I don't think that's out of the realm of sanity for some people. Bitsy says, don't different foods have different thermogenic effects? So it's not just how many calories you, but also with the thermogenic effect of foods that you're eating. Yes. So, the it varies from specific food to specific food, but in general, on average, the thermic effect of protein, so pure protein, is about 30%, which means if you had 100 calories worth of protein foods, like without any fat, so like chicken breast, extra lean chicken breast, which has a little bit, but almost none. If you had 100 calories worth of that, you would essentially absorb 70 calories because your body has to work hard to extract the amino acids from that food, and you don't get all of it. You don't net it out. In terms of carbs, it depends on which carb. So high fiber carbs generally are considered to have a much higher thermic effect versus high sugar, low fiber carb, which makes sense, right? But on average, a carb is maybe 7-ish percent. So of 100 calories, you're getting 93. Fat is more around 5%. So fat is the lowest. So of 100 calories of fat, you get like 95, 96 of it. So you get most of it. So different foods do have different thermogenic effects. At the end of the day, what that means is somebody on a high protein diet. So that would be somebody like eating maybe 40% of their calories from protein, versus somebody eating either a high fat, low, moderate protein, or high carb, moderate protein diet, or a mixed diet, like a more American style diet. Um, the difference is about maybe netting 75 calories. So it definitely exists, but it doesn't explain everything. Um, I think at the end of the day, what we really want to be doing is paying attention to satiety. What types of foods make us feel full? How long do we feel full? How are we able to feel nourished? And how do we get our nutrients? and what suits us personality wise and energetically, and our blood sugars, um keeping our blood sugars in range, keeping us in a appropriate range of insulin, that kind of thing. um John asked about, what about mTOR for decreasing longevity? um so the argument is that high mTOR decreases longevity. So this is why longevity experts will often will often suggest low protein diets or just low calorie diets in general with a lot of fasting. But one of the things that really comes up there is, um, it's a balance. Living your life super lean with not a lot of muscle mass is also a risk, and not something I'm really wanting. So, and quite honestly, most of these studies have been done in rats, not people. We are people, not rats. We're different. Longevity means different things. I mean, longevity means the same thing, living long, but we're biologically not the same as a rat. And so I think we're extrapolating a little too much. Um, Pam says, "Don't you have a cookbook out?" I do have a cookbook. I have 3 cookbooks. If you go to kimhowardson.com/cookbooks, you'll find them. But no, I only have 1 liver recipe. I don't have a lot. There is a woman named Ashley Van Houten, not Howerton, but Houghton, who wrote a book called It Takes Guts. And then she has another book called Carnivore-ish that just came out. I haven't looked at Carnivore-ish. It just came out recently, but It Takes Guts is all a cookbook all about cooking awful. John says eating celery supposedly creates a calorie deficit. Not true. So this came up. There are these sort of foods where they suggest that that happens. These foods do not exist. There is not one of these foods. They've looked at it. Not no. There is no net negative food. There's no food that you absorb negative calories from. Like there's no food that eating it burns more calories than not having eaten it. Now, there are some foods like celery, as an example, that definitely you'd have to eat a lot of celery to be put in a surplus from just eating celery, but there is no net negative caloric food. Um, Krista says, just received my first keto brick today. What is the best way to consume them? I would say with your mouth. No kidding. I like to melt them down and make little pucks out of them, like in a little silicone mold. I find them easier to eat. I can't get them in my mouth because they're very tall, very tall. I prefer to maybe have a little a bit, or you can also cut them up. I prefer to have maybe a little bit with a meal, but it really depends on the person. Lisa, my reverse T3 is 30 and the rest of the thyroid labs are normal. I'm always exhausted. The doctor says the reverse T3 doesn't count and the rest is fine. So here's what's going on. Your problem is not T4 to T3 conversion. Your problem is that T3 is basically being wasted. And so reverse T3 being high generally means um, there is another health problem going on. So it fixing a reverse T3 problem is not as much about fixing the thyroid itself as fixing it's like there's a hole in your boat and you fix the hole in your boat and the water problem will stop. Same thing with reverse T3. So reverse T3 generally speaking is associated with um, malnutrition or poor sleep. It's essentially, if you think about it, like your body is not getting what it needs to function optimally, either on an intake basis. So maybe you're like anorexic. I'm not saying these are you. I'm just giving you general things. Anorexics have very high reverse T3. Chronic dieters, very high reverse T3. So if you're chronically under eating calories, your reverse T3 might be high. If you're malnourished, as in you're not getting the appropriate nutrients you need, your reverse T3 might be high. If you have a sleep problem, sleep apnea, you don't sleep well, you might have high reverse T3. So if somebody has high reverse T3, I would usually suggest that they investigate what in their health spectrum might be a little wonky and could use attention. And it is true that most mainstream doctors don't pay a lot of attention to reverse T3. Um, I have some red tea in here. Okay. Pam says, my doctor suggested resistant starches. I think John mentioned resistant starches. I would say, absolutely, for some people, resistant starches are useful. I think that I think that people misunderstand though and think that it's a get out of jail free card for starch. And remember that even if something is high in resistant starch, it still has a lot of non-resistant starch in it and will still spike the heck out of your blood sugar. So don't use the idea that you're getting resistant starch from it as an excuse to eat a lot of potatoes, as an example. Um, Leafy green vegetables will give you a lot of good resistant starch. So if you need more resistant starch, I would go there. Um, Tracy says, what do you think about collagen powders? So collagen powders, I'm for them in general if you get a good high quality collagen powder. You can also just eat a lot of connective tissue and get collagen that way, or bone broth is a great way to get collagen as well. So, up to you how you want to do that. Um, and I think it's giving a liver recipe there. Um, Dusty says, I have trouble with animal fat due to gallbladder issues. Any suggestions? Is it just animal fat? How do you do with things like olive oil, stuff like that? Does that cause problems as well? Terry, oh, maybe I jumped the gun. Maybe I wasn't supposed to announce it yet. Hold on. I'm going to the site. You guys can hear me typing. Oh, it's not up yet. Maybe I should read my email. I saw somebody else post about it today, so I thought it was okay, but I will post the link when it's up for sale. Um Darcy says, "Thank you for being so real as a keto coach. I'm an oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback. Thanks. Sometimes I'm a little bit like, oh God, did I just say that?" Um And Dusty says animal fats are the hardest. Tend to do better with olive oil and coconut oil. So I would say stick to leaner meats if you find you have trouble with higher fat meats. I don't have a gallbladder, and I do great with animal fats. So we're all unique individuals. We all have different experiences. But if you notice that you don't do well with animal fats, one thing I would say is, do you mean like a ribeye, or do you mean like lard? Like, can you eat fatty meat? Because there's no real reason to add a bunch of fat to meat. You can just eat the meat that's with the fat. But anyway, yeah, Terry. Well, I saw that the owners of Element posted about the chocolate salt on on the internet today, so I was like, oh, it must be out. I'll go look at my email. Whoops. Um, Bitsy Keto says we started implementing sequential eating recommended by Dr. Silas and found it contributes to satiety substantially. Um, Sequential eating. So I think is sequential eating, if I remember, it's like you start with the higher fat. Hey, Ellen, you start with like higher fat meats and then you from there move to other types of foods. Gosh, I don't think leptin acts that fast. You said it gives time for leptin to regulate appetite, but I'll have to look at that. Dusty says, I can't seem to tolerate fatty meat or lard. Unfortunately, they said my gallbladder function is only at 4% and I'd rather not get it out. Oh, okay. It's not that you don't have. Oh, well, Kathy just ordered the chocolate salt. Kathy, where did you find it? Um, uh, it's not that you don't have a gallbladder, it's that your gallbladder is crapping out. Okay. So, oof, I mean, here's the problem. Gallbladder is kind of use it or lose it. So, your gallbladder function is only at 4%. Is that because it's very, like, it's filled with a lot of stones? Um, yeah, I'm not a doctor, by the way, and I'm just curious about this thing. The problem is that if it's something where your gallbladder is, um, oh, I see chocolate. Got it. All right. Well, I will post about it when they get the other one in. Hopefully, I have not caused some sort of problem. Don't tell anyone. Um, so, because one of the issues about your gallbladder, right? So how does the gallbladder work? Well, the gallbladder is attached to the liver, and the liver produces bile. And then bile drips from the liver into the gallbladder, and then the gallbladder stores that bile. And then the when the body senses it needs more bile into the digestive tract to help break down the fats in your food, then the gallbladder squeezes and releases some bile. And so your body, when it's working properly, the liver is produced, the gallbladder stores the bile. When you eat fat, gallbladder squeezes, releases some bile. And so the gallbladder is always getting worked. When we eat a high fat diet, the gallbladder gets a good workout. When we eat no fat, when we eat a low fat diet or no fat, the gallbladder doesn't really get to squeezing much. And so that bile can build up in the gallbladder and get a little sludgy. And then what happens is when you got sludge in your gallbladder, um, when um, when it squeezes and it's sludgy in there, that can be painful, right? So that sort of pain of stones in your gallbladder is not good. So I would worry about giving somebody like this bile salts, something that stimulates more bile. I'd worry that it would cause problems with your gallbladder. So you're in a bit of a fix. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah. In terms of how to answer that. For me, I didn't have a choice about getting my gallbladder out. I was one of the few people that had a need to get that out. So they found that your gallbladder was only operating at 4%, but didn't find any stones. Hmm. So I'm super curious about this. I'm now going to have to research gallbladder function because the things you're telling me are making me curious about things that I think I know, but maybe I need to learn more. But um, yeah, yeah, I would want to get to the bottom of that because one of the issues is it's like I said, gallbladder is kind of use it or lose it. Ultimately, if you never like if you're willing to eat a low fat diet for the rest of your life, and never lose weight. By the way, just simply losing weight on any diet, but more a high carb diet, can cause the gallbladder to have stones. So, right. So, for me, if I still had a gallbladder, I would want that sucker to work. I don't, and it wasn't the worst thing. I'm happy that it's gone. Compared to having a sick gallbladder, I think having no gallbladder is better than having a problematic gallbladder. I certainly am not an advocate for losing any organs if you don't need to, but there is a point at which organs can be so troublesome that they are not worth the experience. For me, interestingly, I've told this story before, so pardon me if you've heard it, but when I went into the hospital with gallbladder pain, this was way pre keto. They were like, "Well, some people live with it," and I was like, well, no, 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 no. This pain is really bad. It's really intense." And they'd done all the scans and the whatever, but I was like green, and they had to. Well, I was like on a morphine drip. I was in so much pain. And they were like, "Well, we could send you home." And I was like, No, this is coming out. It's coming out." And then when they went to operate, they found, in fact, if they hadn't removed it, I would have died. So there you go. Because it's not common, but every once in a while, a really bad gallbladder gets gangrene, and I had gangrene. So I was in the hospital for a week on intravenous antibiotics because it's not good to have gangrene in any of your internal organs or any of your anythings, really. Gangrene is bad. So yeah, that's my story. So I'm very happy that I don't have my gallbladder anymore because that is not a thing. Um, Kathy said, lost my gallbladder due to low fat diets, use bile salts, don't need them anymore. Yeah, I think most people don't need them. Terry says, seems like many people who have gastric bypass have their gallbladders out later. Yeah, in fact, what I'm hearing is a lot of doctors just remove them when you have gastric bypass because they're going to have to come out anyway. Um, Helene says, wow, that's crazy. Any clue how that happened? Yeah, a stone got lodged in a duct and cut off the blood flow to the gallbladder. Like it was a big enough, it was just in just right place, right time. And gangrene will occur when you cut off blood flow to an organ. And so there you go. So that happened. So essentially my gallbladder died. And then as soon as something dies in your body that's not supposed to be dead, it begins to uh, rot, right? And that's not good. So it is rare, though. Don't think just because I tell that story doesn't mean that everyone is going to have that experience. However, it does. It is my story where I say if you're pretty sure something is very wrong with you and they don't think that something is as wrong as you think it is, do not give up. Do not go home to die. I was like, this level of pain is not tolerable for anyone. So no, thank you very much. And so, yeah, they just missed it. All the scans just didn't quite show it. So there you go. Um, Anywho, that was my story for today. What else? We are going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. Do you have a thing that you want me to talk about? Please let me know. That might be it. It might be it for tonight. We might close shop. So, what else is going on? That's about it. All right. Well, oh, Kira says, yeah, my grandmother had the same thing happen. She is still alive today. Also, like you, said 4%. You might want to try. I don't know what that veggie or nut keto thing is. So I don't know. Carol says gallbladder pain was worse than childbirth. I'm glad I had mine removed. Yeah, that's what I've heard. It was funny when I was in the hospital. Um, when I was in the hospital, like in the ER, the doctor walked in, took literally just looked at me, and she said, "It's your gallbladder." Because I look like I was not gray. I was green. That might have been also the issue with the dead organ, but I was green and like I had no blood in my like I was like in just you could see the pain and she's like it's your gallbladder. Yeah, very very painful. Um uh Heather says um do you really have to have 20 total carbs or less? It varies from person to person. The reason we say 20 total carbs or less is because it works for almost everybody. If you want to learn your specific carb tolerance, um, you can. What I suggest is to get a ketone meter like Keto Mojo and then go to 20 carbs. So this is the best way to do it, I think, not the reverse. The reverse is much more frustrating. Go to 20 carbs for like 4 or 5 days. Eat a lot of good meat. You'll be fine. Go to like 20 carbs for 4 or 5 days, and then each day raise it 5 grams. So 25. See how that goes. Maybe 1 to 2 days at that level. Go to 30. 1 to 2 days at that level. 35, right? So you can kind of just push the limit until you find where you're no longer registering in ketosis and then back up a level. And then that is your personal carb threshold in terms of maintaining ketosis. Generally speaking, the younger you are, the more male you are, the more muscle mass you are, the bigger you are. Not the male thing. It's just usually that men are bigger and have more muscle mass, which means they have a higher carb tolerance. However, a sedentary small man has a lower carb tolerance usually. I'm not talking, there's individual differences, but on average, than a large athletic woman. So it's not just, I say male because I think of men as bigger, but I don't know why I'm a bigger woman. So whatever. But yeah, usually it scales with, the more athletic you are, the higher carb tolerance is going to be, generally speaking, because you're burning off more carbohydrates. Nancy says, my new thyroid doc says Lugol's is good for Hashis and hypothyroid, but not good for thyroid cancer patients. I don't know anything about cancer patients with thyroid. I don't know. I will say that I do know that Dr. B would say that um, everyone needs iodine, whether you have a thyroid or not. So, but like, I would not take my opinion over your cancer doctor. I'm just saying that you might say to them, but don't we need iodine anyway? So what's your issue with Lugol's? So, have a conversation like that. Larry says, did I talk about my root beer mix up already? No, I didn't even mention it. This weekend, I drank a regular root beer accidentally. I thought it was a diet root beer. It was a regular root beer. I was very upset at myself. Not like, I wasn't like mad at myself. I was just upset at the experience because now I have like no carbs left in my budget for the week. I adjusted the rest of the week to mentally use those carbs up. So there you go. Kira says, Thomas DeLauer tried it. 50 keto is 50 carbs or less. Some people need less for that. I think so. 50 is too high for a lot of people, Kira. So it just depends. But so when I first started keto back in the day, people would say 50, and then that was when mostly men were doing keto. Again, bigger people. And then 50 didn't work for me. So then more recently, most people will say 20 total carbs. However, for a lot of people, 50 is fine too. Like at this point, I can do 50. I'm now more insulin sensitive, less insulin resistant. 50 works for me now, but it didn't work for me then. Kat says, my friend started doing keto about 3 weeks ago. She's having glucose levels as low as 49, but feels good. I mean, 49 is pretty low. I don't know that I would be seeking out levels of 49. I would check, maybe is her glucometer accurate? That's interesting. I would say I feel more comfortable keeping people above 60. Is she doing long fasting when it's going that low? Are her ketone levels very high? Sometimes when our ketone levels go up, like, over 4 or 5, then the glucose comes down and those kind of balance each other out. Jane says, thank you for all you do. You're welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. Can you have a day for Thanksgiving suggestions? Yes, I'll talk about Thanksgiving. American Thanksgiving. Canadian already had it. Wow. Kira says she basically lost 65 pounds in 7 weeks. Oh, but that might be you might not be you might be a Hirisho, which I might be saying your name totally wrong, and you might be a male because I don't know. I don't honestly know from people's names anymore. And testosterone and estrogen can be affected by it. So I saw testosterone and I thought maybe male. Then I thought estrogen. I don't know. Both men and female have both. I'm making assumptions. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here, depends on the person. Uh, well, John, I would say if you're having appendicitis, you should probably get that removed. I wouldn't do it prophylactically, but if you're having a problem with a body part, I am pro removing it. If you have cancer, I'm pro removing that body part. If you have appendicitis, I'm pro removing it. If your gallbladder is causing you fits, there you go. Yeah, I would say because I can tell when it's Coke instead of Diet Coke. I hate Coke, and I can taste the difference. Now I can't taste the difference between Coke Zero, but I don't like Coke Zero either. I like Diet Coke, not Coke Zero. Actually, I don't really like Diet Coke that much anymore, but I can tell the difference there. But root beer, I can't between diet and regular. So I have to be very careful there. Um, Kat says, I don't think she's doing extended fasting, skipping breakfast and having lunch. I would say potentially I would not want, it's a tough one. I personally would feel a little uncomfortable with regular blood sugars that low. And I would maybe, when I hit 55, 60, I would eat. But you know, it would be something curious to look into for her, in terms of, what does she range? How high does she go? Maybe she's just somebody that tends to have lower blood glucose and very high ketones, and sometimes there's a balancing act between those things. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that you are well and have a great week. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.